guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about the most commonly asked question that I have ever seen in my life in any balloon forum that I've ever been in, which is how much should I charge? I am going to give you a formula that is going to break this down very simply, easily, and can be applied to you at any experience level, whether you are just starting out or if you are a professional, which if you're a professional, you're probably not looking for my advice, but that's okay. Anywhere in between, however long you've been doing this formula will work for you, and you can adjust it as you get better at your craft. One of the issues that I see in the balloon community when people talk about this question of what should I charge is somebody might post like an inspo photo that a client sent and said, what would you charge for something like this? And then people will come in and give recommendations for what they would charge based on their experience level, which we don't know if your experience level matches their experience level. So that in its own is flawed. But then also it doesn't take into account market, and it doesn't take into account the person who's asking the product that they can put out. Can you put out a product that matches your inspo photo? Well, then you can maybe take some of that advice at face value. But if you're a beginner, that same person the next day might post a picture of their work and they're brand new and just getting started, and the feedback they're gonna get is, sweetheart, you're not ready to charge yet, keep practicing, charge for materials but not for labor, right? Like I see that as well. But you don't know if that's the person that's posting the inspo pic or not. Like, it's really difficult to, it's wonderful in the balloon community to see how many people are willing to help out other people who aren't sure how to do this. But it is limited with how much help they can give when they don't know the work of the person who's asking. You know your work, you know how experienced you are, you know how much better you maybe have gotten, you know what kind of value you're putting out for the most part. So using this formula that I'm about to show you, you will be able to put that stuff into it to decide how much should I charge, not how much would you charge, right? That's important. So, are we sitting on my kitchen floor in front of my dishwasher? We sure are. Yeah, we are. This is real life. This is the best thing that I could come up with having something behind me that I could show you. So one more thing, well, maybe a couple more things before I dive into this formula. One, I know that a lot of people charge by the foot. I know that's a very common charging strategy. Fine. I don't, have one. I don't use that strategy, and the reason for that is I don't want to be limited by how much I quoted in terms of footage. I want to get in there and create whatever I want to create, whether that is adding another cluster here, because most people will consider a cluster a foot. If I want to add another one somewhere to make it fuller or take one away because it looks too big or something like that, I don't want to be stuck with whatever I quoted. And then if I go above or beyond that, somebody's not getting a fair shake. I want to quote the product that I'm going to deliver. The other issue with quoting based on square footage, or I'm sorry, not square footage, but linear footage, is that it doesn't take into account your extras. And I am somebody who likes to add a lot of extras. Now, if you just want a basic garland with no extras, nothing added, okay, then, footage might work. But I like to add things and make it exciting and interesting so that when you look at it, you're like, wow, not just like, oh, that's cool. That's kind of my goal with every design that I do. So whether it's dried florals or balloon distortions or twisting or any lighting, all sorts of things, how do you account for that when you're charging by the foot? I find, and I know that people have their ways, and that's totally fine. I just personally find it a little bit more difficult to work all of that in. So this formula that I'm going to give you is going to take that stuff into account too. Okay, last thing, I promise, last thing before we get into this. Obviously, if you're here, you want to make money on this, right? We're looking to add to our bottom line. And another way of doing that is saving money on our investments, right? And the things that we have to buy, the balloons, the supplies, the equipment, the backdrops, the florals, the curtains, all of that stuff. If you want to save money on that stuff and you like doing that, then please find me on my Facebook group, the Balloon Hub Hot Deals and Cool Designs. That is, I'm going to have it linked here in the description below. That is a free group for you to join. And all that it is me finding deals, promo codes, discounts, anything that you can think of on things that we are buying for our balloon businesses. All of the above and more. Anything that I can find. I am sharing those deals with you for you to take advantage of so that we can all save more money on the things that we have to buy. Places like Amazon, Walmart, eFavorMart, Shein, all those sorts of places where we're often spending money, Michael's, all those places, that's the kind of stuff that I'm posting. So if that sounds good to you, come join me on Facebook. Okay, let's get into it. So I do have some notes here, so if you see me looking down, it's because I don't want to forget anything. But the first thing, we're going to break this down into a total of 6 categories, okay? Stay with me. It's not that bad. The first thing we need to think about are materials that you can see and materials that you can't see, and materials that can be reused and materials that can't be reused. So starting with materials that you can see and that cannot be reused, okay? So, materials that are seen and not reusable. The most obvious of that is balloons, right? We're assuming that these balloons cannot be reused. I know there are people putting stuff in their dryers and more power to them, but I'm not doing that. So, balloons. It might be things like if you have somebody who wants a custom foam prop or something that you're making just for this setup, especially if the customer is keeping that. But even if they're not, if this is custom and you're making it just for that setup, then I would count this under this and assume that it is not reusable. Like if you're making like, I don't know, a random, who knows if the next person is going to want the same thing that this person did. So that's an example of what those are. Seen, non-reusable. That you are going to pass 100% of that cost onto your customer. Any money that you spend on that or that you anticipate spending on that goes to the customer. Okay, there's your first one. Second, non-seen, non-reusable. There, as we know, there is plenty that goes into putting a balloon arrangement together besides the balloons themselves. There's things like glue dots, fishing wire, zip ties, tape, command hooks, all that stuff that we are constantly investing in and having to replace, but that customers don't see. So there's 2 different ways that you can go about this. It can be hard to break this down because like if I have a roll of tape and I use a little bit for a job, I don't know how much of that tape, and it costs $5. I don't know how much of that $5 I used on that particular job. If it's simple and you can figure that out, then fine. Break it down to about 50% that you are charging the customer. Or if it's not that simple, or you're using a lot of little things here and there, you can have yourself a flat fee of somewhere between $10 and $20. Okay, so we could just say, to make that easy, $15. We'll say 50% or $15, just sort of a flat fee. If you're investing a lot more money in those, then increase that. This is one of those things. Only you know how much money you're investing. So make this fair. Do not charge every customer 100% of every supply that you are buying per month, right? If you spend $20 per month on supplies and you have 5 customers, it's not fair to charge each customer $20 and make yourself $100. No, if you're buying $20 of supplies in a month and you have 5 customers, then charge each one $10, which is still you making money, but it's also reasonable for the customer. All right, next category. Reusable materials, seen reusable materials. So this is going to be stuff like your backdrops, your props that are things like if you have little boxes or cake stands, excuse you, go on. Backdrops, cake stands, florals, lighting, any of that stuff that you use to zhuzh up your display that make it prettier, that is seen, but that you're going to take home and you're definitely going to be using again, goes into this category. Now, we are going to break this category down into pieces because it kind of depends. So I have 3 categories for this, so we're going to call it A, B, and C. For A, this is stuff that you've already used so many times that you have gotten your money back on it. So this might be an example for me would be some of the florals that I use, my ring stand, my pipe and drape stand, those things that I have used again and again and again. They're long gone paid off. I'm going to charge a low fee for those because I still am accruing wear and tear on that item every time I use it. So I'm still going to charge for its use, but I'm not going to mark it way up. I'm going to charge about 10% of the cost of that. So Next, we're going to have things that we anticipate are going to be frequently reused, but we haven't paid them off yet. Maybe we just invested in it. Maybe we invested in it for this particular setup or plan to invest on it. And we know it's going to get reused. We know it's a good investment. For example, if you don't have a pipe and drape stand yet, but you're going to get one, you're going to use that again pretty reliably. So I'm going to charge about 20% of that cost on this. So frequent use, not paid off. 20%. And then C, my last category for this, is stuff that like, I don't know if I'm going to use this again. I'm investing in it for this particular setup, but I may or may not, I'm going to keep it, but I may or may not use it again, or I'm not going to probably use it that frequently. I have a good one of that coming up. I have a middle school dance that I'm going to be doing. Their theme is like Giddy Up Gala, and I'm going to invest in a neon sign that says Howdy. Am I going to use that again? Maybe. Like that might come up again, but that's not something that's not going to be one of my most frequently requested neon signs. I don't know. So I'm going to charge the customer 50% of that investment. So it's still a deal for them, but also if I don't use it again, I'm not losing too much money on it. Thing that's infrequently used paid off, well then maybe consider whether or not it's frequent. But also if it still is pretty infrequent, then maybe you kind of find a middle ground. If it's infrequently used but it is paid off, like if I do use that Howdy sign 3 more times in the next year, then maybe I'll start charging 20% for it. So okay, that is our third category. Next, and this is the hardest one, is labor. This is the one where people really struggle with what to charge. And most balloon artists, especially newer ones, are severely undercharging for labor. And this is how we get ourselves into this problem where the work is undervalued. Clients don't understand why things cost so much when the person next over here is going to do it for hundreds of dollars less. Because that person isn't trying probably to undercut the business, but she does not or he does not have the confidence yet to charge this amount of money. And this really, so much of it does come down to confidence. And that is why, I mean, I could go on about tips about how to gain that experience and that confidence so that you do feel comfortable. We all have been there. I promise you, I didn't start with this strong of a formula. I definitely started undercharging myself, but we've got to get there quickly. You've got to quickly find a way to stop charging people $200 for a grand setup. Okay. You need to value your labor. How do you figure that out? So let's break this down. We're going to use an hourly rate. I find that to be the easiest way, with a couple of sort of like qualifiers there. So just for start, let's say, even if you're a beginner, even if this is your first time, your time is worth something. You are still doing something for somebody else that they are not having to do themselves. You're still doing something for them. Think about a haircut, okay? Even if you go to Aveda, I don't know if that's a local or regional thing. Aveda is like a salon school around where I live. And you're getting a haircut by a student who is learning, you're still going to pay something. Those haircuts aren't free. Nobody expects that haircut to be free. They expect it to be a lot cheaper than the $150 you might spend at this like high-end salon down the street. Sure, but you're not going to be like, I can't believe I had to pay $20 for that haircut or whatever, right? You expect to pay something. Okay, so a beginner's hourly rate should be somewhere between $20 and $30 an hour. This you can vary and base on your market. If you are in a small town where people aren't going to pay much, then make it 20. If you are in a medium size where people or you have a couple of things to show your work and your worth, then maybe go closer to 30. Okay, intermediate. So intermediate is somebody who has done a few jobs, has some pictures in their portfolio to show people, look, this is what my work is worth. This is how I've done this a few times. You're gaining knowledge. You're figuring out how to make things work on the fly when you're on a job and the backdrop isn't working like you thought it would, or the venue doesn't have the same hanging stuff that you thought it would, and you can figure things out. You can make things work. You're gaining that skill and that expertise, and also the product that you're putting out is starting to look good. Like it's starting to look like, wow, like this looks good. I know that that's a really like subjective thing to say, and it's like, well, how do I know? But I think that's just a feeling. Like I think you start to know when your stuff looks good and when it's like, you know, I still look like a beginner. I'm going to show you some of my work on these different levels and how I would apply them in case that helps. But for an intermediate, you're looking at about $30, anywhere up to $60, $65 an hour. Again, this depends on like, are you a brand new intermediate or are you intermediate heading toward advanced? So we'll say 30 to 65. And then we have advanced. These are the pros who are in high demand. They are booked out. They know what they are doing. They are fast, all of that stuff. They are putting together amazing work every time. These people can charge, I mean, we're going to say kind of almost what they want, but let's just, to put a number on it, we'll say 65 to 125 an hour. By the way, it's May of 2025. So whenever you're watching this, like maybe if things have changed with, you know, general inflation, then take that into account. Here's the one thing that you need to keep in mind about charging per hour is if you are a beginner, especially, well, actually you need to keep this concept in mind no matter what level you're at. But if you're a beginner, you're going to be slower. That's normal. That's okay. You should be. You should take your time to get it right. Whereas if you are advanced, you're going to be pretty quick, right? You're going to know your way around it. So you need to account for that because it's not fair to charge a customer for time alone if you're super slow. If an advanced person could have put it together in an hour, but you're taking 4 hours to put it together, it's not really fair to charge the customer for 4 hours. The other side of that is as you get faster, you don't want to short yourself just because you're faster. Like, well, now I can do this setup in 2 hours, but now I'm going to cut down on what I make because I'm only charging for 2 hours. So that is part of why we have built in increasing your advancement. Like if you take a setup that used to take you 4 hours to set up and now it takes you 2 hours, then hey, you might want to think about putting yourself in the intermediate range anyway. But especially for beginners, if you have a setup and you think, honestly, this is probably going to take me by the way, this isn't just setup time. This is design time. This is time spent talking to the client. This is time spent fiddling through all the different balloon sites to make sure you get the color you want and the quantity that you want and they have it in stock and you got to get this color from over on this distributor because they have that in stock. That takes time and that counts. All of that in addition to inflating, setting up, coming back and tearing it down. All of that is included in the time. So, but anyway, if you say overall, this is probably going to take me 6 hours, but I don't know if in a couple of months when I'm better at this, if it would take me that long. So just to be fair to yourself and the customer, when you estimate your time, also estimate what would a more advanced, more experienced person take for this time. If it's a big difference, like you think it's going to take you 6 hours and you think somebody more experienced might be able to do it in 3, well then don't charge for 6 at your low rate. You need to charge for more like 3 or 4 at your low rate. So take that into account, especially when you're brand new and you're just beginning to get good at this and you're going to take longer. It's okay that you take longer. Just account for it so that you and the customer are still getting a fair shake. You're not going to stay in business long if you screw your customer. Okay. 5. Am I still on camera? Yeah. Overhead. So this is all the stuff, all the investments that go into a business that aren't the supplies themselves. So if you bought a website, if you have a car payment, if you have a storefront and you're paying rent on it, if you have a storage unit and you're paying rent on it, insurance, all of that stuff, if you hire an inflator or you hire a striker, if you hire a striker, any of that stuff is money that you have to spend that is not necessarily going into one design or another, but you still have to account for it and where your money, your income is coming from. So the best way to take that is to take your total monthly overhead cost and divide it by the number of jobs you anticipate to have every month. If your total monthly overhead comes to $200 and you anticipate having 10 jobs every month, then you should plan on charging $20 per customer. If your total is $200 and you only get 5 jobs a month, then you should charge $40 to each customer. Sorry for that interruption. That was me getting a phone call asking about balloons. So I will be using this formula when I give him his quote here shortly. Okay. Anyway, so that's overhead. Also, the only other thing that I want to say about overhead is include what your current overhead is, but if you have something that you are working towards getting, start including that in your overhead. So if you are interested in buying a van in the near future, okay, if the van is like years out, then don't add that into your overhead yet. But if it's something that you're like, no, as soon as I'm working towards this actively, this is a goal that I have, then add the cost of the van into your current overhead so that you can work your way towards that van. If you're going to get a van soon, soon, but a storefront isn't anything that's like on your radar, then don't add for the storefront overhead. Okay, again, we want to be fair to everybody involved. All right, and then the last category, maybe the hardest, but also the most impactful, is value. And if you are awesome and you create things that just people go, wow, the wow factor, literally the wow factor, that people go, oh my goodness, how do you do that? That's amazing. Like, you start to feel that when it starts to happen. And if you're creating value, then outside of these raw materials and your straight up labor, you need to charge for that. If you're a beginner, you're probably not there yet, but you might be. Like, depending on your skill level, you might be just starting out, but you might be awesome just starting out. But you have to have a few of these under your belt in order to prove to people that you are worth a value charge. Okay, so anybody can charge a value charge as long as you have something to back it up. So your value is, again, it's your unique flair. It is how in demand you are. This is your skill. This is the magic that you deliver. This is how you figure out if you're bringing the value. If you are a beginner, but you're bringing the value, you can add anywhere, let's say if you're not bringing the value, 0%, but up to about 5%. Wherever you land on this, add 5%. If you are bringing the wow, add 5%. If you are intermediate and you are bringing the wow, 10 to 15%. And if you are just knocking it out of the park, you are a pro, you're in high demand, you are booked out, all of that stuff, you can start adding 20 to 30% of your total price on to the end because of your value, or more, depending on just how far along you are, okay? Be careful with this. Don't just assume that because somebody liked your work that you get to add, that you're ready to add 30% of your full price onto this. Be realistic about this. Be cautious about this. You are going to make a profit and you are going to make your money back and you are going to pay yourself with 1 through 5. But if you truly are worth number 6 and worth adding value, then charge for it. And this is especially when you start adding things like balloon distortion and twisting and all of these skills that not every person has, then you are starting to bring that value. And there it is. There is my formula for how to figure out what in the heck to charge people for this. One last tip, not my last tip, but one tip that I have for you: when you give people a quote, if you're breaking it down into an estimate, a written invoice, however you want to do it, do not, my recommendation, do not itemize this out. Do not say, I'm charging you this for materials, I'm charging you that for these materials, I'm charging you this for the props, I'm charging you this for my labor. When you start itemizing, it is an opportunity for people to start picking, because everybody wants to save money, right? That's just how we all are as humans. They're gonna say, well, I don't really need the florals, I don't really need this. You really think that your time is worth that much? Like, it's not, there's no reason for it. If you are putting this together correctly and you have the portfolio to back up your work, then the price that you give should be reflective and fair based on this information. You don't have to itemize it and you don't have to show people exactly where things are coming from. You can itemize it in clumps. You can say X for materials and X for delivery. I don't even do that. I don't have a delivery charge in there. My delivery is factored into my labor, because people also get like in a huff about delivery charges and breakdown charges. They don't want to see that itemized. They want a nice one number. And it also, even if that number, and as it should be, is higher, then like people would rather hear $300 than $200 plus $50 delivery plus $50 with breakdown. I'm telling you, people would rather see a $300 charge, and then you can say, and that includes everything. That includes all your materials, the delivery, the breakdown, our design, everything. When you, like, it's all about how you put the spin on it. And people are like, okay, look at how much I'm getting for this, instead of she's charging me for this every little thing. She's just nickel and diming me the whole way around. It makes a difference. So I do not recommend itemizing things out. I used to do it, don't recommend it. Okay, now let's put this into effect on a couple of, we're going to use me as an example on a couple of pieces, and we're going to see if I charged appropriately. Okay, here is the very first very first job that I did for any kind of money. I had just done my first one for my kids. I thought it was fun. I put it in my neighborhood Facebook page. Hey, I really enjoyed this. If anybody's throwing a party and needs a balloon garland, let me know. You buy the balloons. I was using Amazon balloons. You buy the balloons and give me like 20 bucks is how I put it. And somebody, this wonderful woman who I'm always going to be thankful for, contacted me and said, I would love to have you put together this garland. She bought the balloons from Amazon. Let's say that they were $20. So there's her scene, non-reusable. I probably used some rubber bands and command hooks and that sort of thing. I mean, I probably didn't have any business charging her more than maybe $5 for unseen reusables. And then for unseen non-reusables. And then for seen reusables, so backdrops, things like that, she bought this banner here. So really there's no props, there's no backdrops, there's none of that. So I didn't, there's nothing in this category for this particular job. For labor, now here's the thing. Today, if somebody asked me to set up a simple, like, what is this, maybe 10-foot garland, maybe more, I don't know. I could have that knocked out, inflating and set up in maybe 2 hours total. This took me like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on site. And then it also took me a while to inflate. This is where it's not really fair to charge somebody for 3-4 hours for time just because I'm a beginner. But it's also, I don't want to undercut the actual time that I put in. So let's say I should charge her $20 an hour, and for 2 hours is what's more reasonable. So that's $40. So we're up to $40 for my labor and $5 for material, unseen non-reusables, and we are at the $20 for the balloons. So that puts us at $55. I had 0 overhead at the time, and I was not bringing any value. I was at 0% for value. So $55. This woman, if we pretend that I bought the balloons, then she paid me 50 is what I asked her for 20. She gave me $30. And that's pretty close. I came pretty close, actually. I mean, I did undercharge her, but what I ended up getting, she paid me appropriately. She saw the value in my work, and that worked out. Okay. And so for a brand new person who was bringing, like, you know, I did her a solid by doing it for her, but it's not like I brought anything crazy. That's an absolute beginner. Okay, let's move a little bit forward to after I've gotten some experience under my belt. I'm learning more things. I'm bringing more stuff to the table, but I'm still beginner and like leaning toward getting closer to intermediate with this setup. This setup, let me just tell you guys, I thought that I ate. I was like, I'm awesome. You know, I thought this was amazing. And then I look at it now and I'm like, there's a million things that could be a lot better about this, but it's better than where I started, right? So let's break this down. For this, I was still buying Amazon balloons. And I want to say I bought 4 packs for all of this. This one, there's a lot more involved. So this is going to take me a minute. I bought about 4 packs at about $15 a piece. So let's write this down. So for we're going to call this intermediate level. For the balloons, we're going to say I spent $60. I'm thinking about custom props. I didn't make any custom props for this. So we're going to leave that at $60. For unseen non-reusable, so I used a lot of clothespins on this for the flowers, a lot of 260s. But that's pretty much it. Maybe a little bit of fishing wire. So I think $10 is fair to charge on that. Okay, scene reusables. There's a lot of this. A scene reusable was the neon sign. I bought that for this particular party. Not sure. I mean, this was well over a year ago. I have not used that again one time, I think. I thought that I would. I thought Better Together would be like maybe a frequently requested one. Not really. So I think 50% on that. Like I bought it and kept it, but it is not a frequently used item. Let's say that cost $30. So we're gonna say for the neon, charge 15, which is 50% of that. I built that wood wall for this, again, thinking I would reuse it a lot of times. I have reused it a few times. I probably invested about $100 and a lot of time into it. I do not recommend that wood wall. If you would like to know how I made it, I'm happy to tell you, but it's heavy and it's kind of a pain. So I don't use it as often as I thought that I would. But I thought that I was going to. So, you know, I invested closer to $150 into making that wall. I think it's fair to charge the customer 20% of that, which is going to be $30. I'm probably lowballing myself on that, but I'm trying to be fair. Okay, so that's the wood wall. For the florals, I spent probably about $50 on florals. Those are definitely reusable, but I didn't have them paid off yet, so I think 20% is fair to pass on to the customer, so that's gonna be. I also bought that arch, that like semicircle arch for this event, but also assumed frequent reuse, but bought it for this event, not yet paid off, also 20%. I think I spent maybe 50 or 60, we'll say $60 on that. So 20% of that's gonna be 12. What else did I buy for that? The curtains were provided by the customer and she took them back home. The cake stands I invested in for that event and have reused them lightly. I don't know if I even have those paid off yet. I'm gonna say 50% of those because those were a hefty investment that I have not gotten that frequent use out of. So 50% of that's 75. All right, I think that covers all of the scene reusables. So that total is gonna be $142. Now, labor. Now again, this is tricky because this took me a long time and longer than it should for even an intermediate person. I spent a couple of hours in designing and chatting with the client. I didn't spend that much time ordering balloons. She sent me a kit that she wanted and I ordered them because again, I was still using kits. So I spent probably 2 hours inflating and I think I spent about 3 hours setting up and another maybe even another hour or two just on like other design prep time. So like probably close to 10 hours on this event. What's probably more reasonable for a pro is more like 6 or 7. Let's go with 7 hours at we'll say a $30 per hour, so that is 210. We'll say 7 expected hours, 210. Overhead, I still did not have any overhead at this time. And value that I was bringing, I mean, I'm starting to bring some value. We are seeing some, it's nice that they were happy when they saw it. Like I'm bringing some value here, but it's not so like holy cow kind of value. We're getting closer, so maybe I could add 5% onto that. Let's say 5% and just see where that puts us. So that's 5% of the subtotal. So that's going to put us at 422, 463. Now, remembering how much work that took me and how hard I tried, I'm comfortable with rounding that up. I am comfortable with rounding this up to 500 as my total because I kind of lowballed myself on everything here. And that is like a liberty that you can take when you are quoting people. So I'm going to round this up to 500. And I'll tell you what, that is exactly what I charged her. And I didn't know that that's how this was going to work out. So now I think that if I put these pictures up, let me rephrase this. If I had somebody request the same design from me today, it would look very different. I would have put together a much more beautiful product, a much more cohesive, more professional. A lot of things would look better about the way the balloons look, the shape, the distribution, all of that stuff. It would be a better product and it would be worth more than $500. If somebody asked me for this exact display today, I mean, just as a guess, like just rounding off the top of my head, I'm closer to between 800 and 1,000 for recreating this at the level that I'm at now. This is why you can't just ask somebody, what should I charge for this? Because literally me today being given this inspo picture, I would tell you that I would charge more because I know that the product that I'm going to put out is better than this inspo picture. So I feel like I'm going to get maybe some feedback that 500 is pretty low for all the work involved in this, but it's not that impressive of a product yet. I'm not that good yet. I'm getting there, but I'm not that good yet. I think 500 is reasonable. I don't know. I might get some slapbacks on that. I'll take it. All right, let's do one more. Let's do this setup. This is a more recent setup, and I can tell you that I undercharged for this, but ever since I've been putting this formula into effect, I'm not undercharging anymore. But okay, so let's look at this. I'm running out of ink here. I'm gonna get myself another marker. Let's see if you can see this. Yeah, all right. So let's do one more. Let's gonna say now I'm heading into advanced land. I'm still beginning of advanced, but I'm beyond certainly the intermediate level that I was at before. Okay, so C, non-reusable, balloons and custom props. The balloons and the 25 custom floral numbers there would count as, when's the next person somebody's gonna ask me for a sparkly blue rose 25? Maybe sometime this year, but after 2025 is over, like never again. So I'm gonna consider that a scene non-reusable, and it cost me about $50 to make the 25, and I spent about $30 on balloons, so 80 for unseen non-reusable. So again, fishing wire, glue dots, tape, 260s, things like that. I'm just gonna go with a flat fee here, and I'm increasing that a bit because I'm buying more of that stuff. I'm investing in more of that stuff on a regular basis. I'm gonna say a flat fee of $20. Scene reusable, we're looking at, I used a pipe and drape stand for this. I've gotten frequent use out of that. I have it paid off now, so it was, I think, $70. I'm going to charge the client, we'll say pipe and drape. I'm going to charge the client about 10. Get you closer here. Also in that, the flower wall, I spent, I think, 120 on that. I've gotten a few uses out of that. It's not that frequently used. I'm going to charge the client 20% of that, which is about $25. The florals I bought new for that setup. Now, I kept them. Might I use those florals again? Sure, I might. But these blue florals are like, am I going to use them again? Are they going to be frequently used? I'm not sure. I'm going to put more on the client for that. Now, if they were like pink and something that I'm very likely to reuse, I might lower this. But for all blues, I'm going to put that at 50%. And I spent about $50 on those florals, so 25. All right, that should cover all of my scene reusables. Now we have my labor. Now I'm getting better, right? I mean, by far, this is better than the intermediate setup that I showed you. So I'm getting closer to being able to charge something like $60, $50, $60 per hour. I spent, we'll say, an hour in design time, an hour making that 25. Oh, glue sticks and the hot glue gun or something that I can include in that scene non-reusable $20 flat fee. I spent, I'm gonna say 2 hours inflating because of those balloon chain pearls. Those took a bit longer. And then I spent about an hour and a half setting that up. So let's call that 6 hours in total. I'm no longer adjusting my expected hourly rate because I think I'm working about as fast as is reasonable to expect. So we're gonna call that 6 hours. We'll call it $60 an hour. That's $360. And then we have overhead. I do have a little bit more overhead now, but it's honestly not much. I'm not paying for storefronts or storage units or anything like that. My overhead, I can still probably only like pass on $10, $20 to the client. So let's just call it 10. And then value. I'm starting to bring value here, right? I think that I could probably add maybe 10% onto the total for the value that I'm bringing, maybe more, but just to be reasonable, let's start with 10%. So my subtotal here is $530. And then if I add 10% of that, that is going to be another $53. Is that right? Yeah. Plus $53 equals $583. Very, again, I think rounding is very fair and reasonable to do. So we're going to bring that to $600. That is not what I charged for this. I will be honest with you. This is totally what I should have charged for that. So do you see how that works? Now, I know that I'm doing this retrospectively, and that does make it a little bit easier. You do have to take some time and know yourself and the product that you are going to put out when you are making these estimates. You have to know what to expect of yourself. You've done this a few times. You know that you're probably going to take an X amount of time to set something up. You need to get really solid with your client about what it is that they want, so you can know ahead of time, am I going to be investing in new props, new florals, new this and that, and look it up and decide which product that you're buying and know the price of it. You have to know that stuff before you can adequately and accurately quote the client. And so because of that, I know people want numbers quickly, right? You have an inquiry, somebody's like, my favorite, and I'm sure you guys can relate. How much is a balloon arch? What? I don't know. What do you want? Like, and people say that all the time, right? So you have to get some really good, solid information from your client, what they want, what they're thinking, and all of that stuff before you can give a number. And I actually have a like a sort of little thing that I'll write out and just say, thanks so much for getting in touch. Before I can give you an accurate estimate, can you give me these details? And I have it pre-written, things like what day, time, place is your event? Is it indoor or outdoor? Because that might be something, especially if you live in heat, that you might want to consider upcharging for. What are your colors? What do you have any inspo pics? Like all of that stuff I send to them. If you can send me as much of this information as possible, I can give you some more information about what the cost would be. And usually people are pretty responsive to that, or they're like, I don't know. And then you can get the information that they do have, and then you can guide them. And that's really nice, because then you can guide them to things that A, you already know that you're good at, or B, that you really have been wanting to try, and you want to, maybe you're going to give them a little bit of a deal on it. And you can guide them to things like that. But you get all of that information. And then the last thing I'll say to the client is, this is an estimate, and this, I don't expect the total cost to vary widely from the estimate that I'm giving you, but I am calling it an estimate just in case, because that does allow for us to make changes along the way. If we decide to add something here or take away something there, I'm going to adjust my total accordingly. So that if you quote somebody $550 and then they end up asking you for like marquee numbers that you end up having to make yourself, you don't want to just eat that, right? You're going to say, well, that's going to add on to my original estimate. So that is just a kind of a way to get around that, is to call it an estimate. My last thing to you, I have a question. I have two questions. One, I have a few questions. First of all, would you like this formula in a worksheet? If I made that, would you want it? Especially if it was free. Would you pay for it? I don't know. Let me know. But if you would like it, if you would find it useful, let me know, and I will take the time to make up a worksheet with all of this information in it. Another question that I have, this is something that's been rolling around the back of my head. I know that I went over a lot of stuff here today, and I know that you probably still might be like, I don't know. Am I a beginner? Am I intermediate? What's fair for me to charge for my hourly rate? Is my work quality yet? Do I have a value factor yet? Am I bringing it yet? Because we're our own worst critic, and we're going to be the hardest to say that about ourselves, right? Would it be of value to you if I did like one-on-one consultations where I look at your area, your work, your investment, and we look at, maybe even like a job that you've been asked to quote, or do some samples if you haven't been. And we really sit down together like over Zoom or FaceTime or whatever, and we figure this out together so that you can kind of get your reference point for where you should be putting yourself into these equations. Does that sound valuable to you? And if so, how valuable? Like, what would you pay for that? Like, if this is something that I were to do, I think I would start out offering like a certain number of free, just to get started and get my feet wet too. So there's that. But like in the end, like if you were like considering this, I don't know, just help me out. Tell me what you think about that. Or if it's not worth my time to even pursue, that's fine. And then my last question to you is, I had one more question, but I can't remember what it was. So I'll ask it another time. All right, I think that's all that I have to say. Please let me know if this was helpful, if you use it, how it goes, what you think, if you have questions, all of the things. I'm here to help. As I've said before, doing all of this is just a perfect like marriage of things that I'm interested in. I love doing this stuff. I love the balloons. I love working with them, learning new things, all of that. I also like helping people. That is just sort of like part of my innate nature. So being able to put this together and do both in one is just like, it's like I finally found something that I really want to do and I really enjoy. So I'm here to help. Please let me know how I can help, what you need, and what I can do for you. And as always, thank you for watching and happy ballooning.